welcome to another lesson. This is number 8, Joseph Something Good, from Genesis 37, really 42 to 45. We're going to look at 50, 20, our key verse today. It's in the Amazing Adventure book. Glad you could join me again. We've gone through Adam, Noah, Abraham, Isaac, Jacob. This story is amazing. It's part 2. Part 1, we saw Joseph was sold off to Egypt by his brothers. They wanted to kill him at first because he was a dreamer and they didn't like his dreams. He goes to Egypt and he's put in prison, gets out of prison through interpreting dreams, and God's with him, and he becomes number 2 in Egypt. And he became number 2 in Egypt because he made a plan that he knew there was a famine coming, and he made a plan to store grain for 7 years, and then the next 7 years would be the famine. During the famine, he's got all this grain overflowing, can't even count it all. His father, Jacob, right here, Abraham, Isaac, Jacob, then Joseph. Joseph was one of 12 sons, the 12 tribes of Israel. He's in Egypt. Jacob says, hey, we need some grain. We're in Canaan. He sends his 10 brothers down to Egypt. They bow down to Joseph. They don't recognize him. He recognized them. Just like in the dream, they bow down to him. And he gets a lot of information from him about his father, his younger brother, Benjamin. And he accuses them of spies. He speaks harshly to them, and they say, no, we're not spies. So he sends them away. He says, I'll send you away, but you need to keep one brother here. So Simeon stays in the jail, in the prison. The others go back home. He sends them back with the grain, but he also puts the money back in their sacks. About halfway there, or some way apart on the journey, along the journey, they see the money, and they're like, oh my goodness, we can't go back now. But the father said, you got to go back. We need more grain. They said, we can't go back without Benjamin. And he didn't want to send Benjamin, of course. He didn't want to lose another son. He already lost Simeon there in the prison. He lost Joseph earlier on, he feels like, and now he's afraid he's going to lose Benjamin. So he finally has to, because the famine's so bad. So they go back. They take double the money back. Joseph is so emotional when he sees Benjamin, his son, his brother, but he again accuses them of being spies, but he does give him the grain. He sends it back. He finds out about his father. He says, but he told his steward in the house to put his silver cup in Benjamin's sack. So on the way, right out the gate, the steward goes after him and says, hey, somebody took our silver cup. They said, why would we do that? And they check all the sacks from the oldest to the youngest, and finally Benjamin, they find the silver cup, and they said whoever has the silver cup would be the slave of Joseph. And so they came back to him. They said, he can't be your slave. We'll be a slave in his place. So really Joseph saw that their hearts had changed to a degree where they were repentant of their actions before. They still didn't recognize Joseph. He was basically playing them. So he says, okay, go back, get your father. He told them that, finally he told them that he was Joseph. Okay, they had the meal together. He cries on their necks, especially on Benjamin. And he says, go back, get your father. He sends them back with a bunch of, so much stuff. It was like carts and like 10 donkeys and grains and everything. And he's so happy, and they were happy to see him alive. They're still pretty dumbfounded that he's at number 2 position in Egypt. They go back and bring the father. He can't believe it either that Joseph is alive. He comes back, sees his son. Pharaoh says, I'm going to give you the best land in Egypt. And he does. So Israel comes back with 66 people. Then they grow to a massive nation. That's what we're going to see in the next story in Moses. And so God's story continues. It's an amazing story of redemption, of salvation. We'll see in Genesis verse 20 in chapter 50. We see that the whole purpose of the story was summed up in this verse. And as for you, you meant evil against me, but God meant it for good, in order to bring about this present result, to preserve many people alive. So God, he said that Satan meant this for evil, sending him to Egypt in prison, being falsely accused, and then rising up to number 2 in the nation of Egypt. But but God meant it for good to save many people. And that's what God's after today. He's after saving people. Salvation is spiritual, not just physical. He wants the best for us physically, but he also wants our spirit to be unified with his son, Jesus Christ, and have our identity in Christ, and not walk after the flesh like these brothers did. If you like this on YouTube, share it, like it, subscribe, and join us again next Thursday. We'll have another lesson in the Amazing Adventure book.